Let me ask you something, right off the bat. When you look at the world with all its challenges, are you the person who's great at pointing out what's broken? Or are you the one trying to build what's next?
So, in this explainer, we're going to dig into a huge shift that's happening right now, especially with young leaders. It's this incredible move away from just being a critic to actually becoming a changemaker. Honestly, it's pretty much the defining feature of leadership heading into 2026.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down the difference between these two mindsets. Then we'll look at the danger of getting stuck in what I call the critic's loop. After that, we're going to pivot to the good stuff, the skills, the platforms, and some real-world examples of change-making in action. And, you guessed it, we'll end by turning that big question right back to you. Okay, so picture this. You're faced with a problem, any problem. There are really two fundamental paths you can take. Let's break down these two mindsets, because they are worlds apart. A lot of us start right here with something called passive dissent. And look, it's a super important first step. You see something wrong, and you call it out. It's that fired-up tweet, that scathing online review, or showing up for a protest. It's all about putting a spotlight on the issue, but it can't be where the story ends. And this slide just lays it all out so clearly. You see the critic? They're reactive. Their whole focus is on who's to blame, and their output, well, it's critique, posts, protests. But the changemaker? Totally different energy. They're proactive. They immediately jump to, how do we solve this? Their output is tangible stuff. Policy ideas, new companies, actual projects. The skills are different too. It's the difference between being good with words and being good with people and resources. Now, don't get me wrong, criticism has its place. But just staying in that mode, well, it can be a trap. Let's talk about what the source material calls the critic's loop. Yeah, the number one risk here is falling into the Slacktivism pit. You know exactly what this is. It's that like, that share, that hashtag. It feels like you're doing something, right? It gives you that little hit of satisfaction, but it rarely leads to any real, lasting change. It's the feeling of action without the hard work of building something better. And this quote, this is the real kicker. This is the personal cost. When you're constantly focused on what's wrong and you never see progress, it's just draining. It leads to burnout, to cynicism, to that feeling that nothing can ever get better. And that is the exact opposite of the energy you need to actually create change. So, how do we break out of this cycle? You do it by building a very specific set of skills. Let's dive into what our source calls the 5C model. Think of this as the foundation for taking action. Now, this isn't just some random list of buzzwords, This is a toolkit. You need critical thinking to see past the symptoms to the real root cause. You need creativity to design solutions that can actually work and grow. You absolutely need collaboration, because nobody, and I mean nobody, solves big problems alone. You even need the critics on your team. Then you need communication to sell your idea, and most importantly, compassion, to make damn sure that what you're building actually helps the people who need it most. And here's the best part. You are not expected to figure all this out on your own, in a vacuum. There are these incredible platforms out there specifically designed to give you the funding, the mentorship, and the community you need to go from idea to real-world impact. So on a big global scale, you've got organizations like UNESCO. Their 2026 Youth Report is basically the playbook for understanding how young people can and should get a seat at the table when it comes to making policy. It really sets the global standard. Then you get more hands-on programs like Youth Collab in India. This is where the rubber really meets the road. They're a partnership that's putting their money where their mouth is, giving out actual seed grants to young entrepreneurs who are tackling issues like sustainable fashion and waste management. They fund the doers. And if you ever need a shot of pure inspiration, you have to check out Ashoka Young Changemakers. Their whole motto is everyone a changemaker, and they have the stories to back it up. Amazing case studies of kids who built massive nationwide social enterprises before they were even 20 years old. It's incredible. And it's not just NGOs. Governments are getting in on the action too. Portals like My Bharat in India are designed to be a bridge, directly connecting young innovators with government mentors so they can work together on huge national challenges. It's all about plugging new ideas right into the system. Okay, so we've covered the theory, the skills, and the support systems. Let's make this all concrete. Let's look at a real example of this entire shift from critic to changemaker in action. So the setting is a hackathon. Hack for Social Cause 2026. The problem they put on the table was a big one. Urban waste. You know, a classic topic that gets a ton of criticism. But the way they ran this event was totally different.
And this right here, this quote is everything. There was one giant, non-negotiable rule. You are not allowed to just show up with a PowerPoint deck talking about how bad the trash problem is. That was literally banned. You had to walk in the door with a working, tech-based solution that could actually be used. No talk, all action.
So what was the result? Not another report. Not another protest sign. A real, tangible tool. An AI-powered mapping system that local governments could use to manage waste more efficiently. I mean, come on, that's the perfect example of moving past the complaint and building the solution.
And all of this, everything we've talked about today, it really brings us to a very fundamental, very personal choice that every single one of us has to make. I think this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's so simple, but so powerful. The critic is in the stands, watching the game, analyzing every play. The changemaker, they're on the field. They're playing. They might fail, for sure, but they're also the only ones who have a shot at winning. So as we wrap this up, the question isn't really about some abstract leadership trend for 2026. It's for you, right now. When you see that thing that you care so much about, that problem that keeps you up at night, will you be a spectator or will you choose to be a participant? The choice, really, is all yours.